Hi everyone! Welcome to Kids Worship. Let's get started by saying this together. This is how I worship. I expect to meet with God. I invite the Holy Spirit to come upon me. I participate with enthusiasm in all activities. Today's scripture is Genesis 39:3. Let's read it all together. You may skip the words in parentheses. Begin. Genesis 39:3. His master saw that the Lord was with him and that the Lord gave him success in everything he did. The verse says, his master Potiphar saw that the Lord was with Joseph and that the Lord gave Joseph success in everything he did. Let's read it one more time. Go. His master saw that the Lord was with him and that the Lord gave him success in everything he did. Genesis 39:3. Today, I'm going to continue the story of Joseph. From the previous story, Joseph was harmed by his brothers and was sold as a slave to Egypt. You remember? So, Joseph is now in Egypt. He's a stranger in a completely strange country. People, culture, language are all different. Guys, do you remember people who are also in strange land from what we learned previously? Yeah, Daniel and Paul, right? Daniel was taken captive, which means prisoner, to Babylon when his country Judah was destroyed. And Paul traveled to foreign countries to preach the gospel. Paul was voluntary, which means willing to go out to a strange place for a purpose of spreading the gospel. Whereas Daniel was involuntary, which means he didn't want but was forced to leave his country and to go out to foreign country. Anyways, whether they planned or not, voluntary or involuntary, both of them worked for the gospel to reach out to other people. It was so bad that people of Judah had to leave their country and were taken captive to Babylon. But those who were scattered could spread the gospel where they went. So, the sad history of Judah was turned to be an opportunity to make God known to those who lived in Babylon. Look at the map. See how the gospel spread and reached out to other peoples. This is just a few examples. The gospel started in Israel, Judah. Throughout the history of Israel, the gospel kept spreading all over the world. When Joseph was taken to Egypt, Daniel to Babylon, and Paul went out to the West, they all reached out to people there with the gospel. No matter where people of God moved, they went out with the gospel. This is how the gospel spread and how people all over the world hear the gospel. Guys, isn't it so awesome that God uses even a bad and sad incident to turn it to a blessing? Sufferings, sorrows, problems are turned to be opportunities or blessings when they are put in God's hands. Let me say that again. Sufferings, sorrows, problems are turned to be opportunities or blessings when they are put in God's hands. That is why we don't need to freak out about bad things coming. There is nothing too difficult for God to work out. God is in control of everything. In other words, our God is a sovereign God, which means He's got the whole world and everything in it in His hands, as in the song. Then now, what about Joseph, who was taken to Egypt as a slave? Can God change his miserable situation too? How can it be possible? And how much better can his circumstance be changed? In fact, his story seems to be worse than Daniel and Paul, because Daniel and Paul had at least some friends with them. But Joseph was all alone, no friends at all, and he was even a slave with no freedom. No matter how great dreams he had earlier, he might be the saddest person now, because he was pushed to this situation by his own brothers. So there's no one who can help him. None will do that. And he's now far, far away from home. Seems like he can never go back home. He's totally hopeless. Can he expect anything good even in this situation? To spoil the ending, yes, Joseph's life was dramatically changed and was used by God's hand. Joseph was blessed a lot, and he also became a huge blessing to people around him. His life ended with a great success and prosperity, which means he had both wealth and power that all people envied him. He became prime minister in Egypt, the second most powerful man next to Pharaoh. Think about his life. From a slave to prime minister, it is a remarkable change, isn't it? Joseph moved upwardly in his status from the lowest to the highest. Then you might think his life was always on the rise and everything went well. On the one hand, yeah, that is true. God blessed Joseph, so no matter where he went, God gave him success, like his master Potiphar said in today's verse. Moreover, God also blessed people around Joseph because of him. However, his life didn't go smoothly at all times. There were ups and downs in his life, just like all other people usually are. But in fact, as for him, his life was too good when it's good and too bad when it's bad. So let's try tracking his life a little bit back to Canaan, his home, and his childhood. He was loved by his dad way more than his brothers. He was a favorite son to his dad. So he got so special treatment, which made his brothers so jealous. He even had special dreams from God, which would mean that he will be so special person in the future. So Joseph was living a very happy life in Canaan. But one day, when he went out to see his brothers in the field, he never knew that his life would be completely changed. And he never knew that he couldn't go back home forever. His brothers tried to kill him and sold him as a slave. That's why he went on the trip to Egypt. From Canaan to Egypt, it is really a long trip. There was no car, no train, definitely no plane back then. he had to walk. It was neither exciting nor pleasant trip at all. Joseph must have gone through a very difficult time during this trip. As a matter of fact, the Bible doesn't tell us about this trip from Canaan to Egypt. But I believe it must be a very important experience to Joseph. It's because it was the serious difficulty that Joseph went through for the first time in his life. Moreover, we can notice that there is some change in Joseph's attitudes before and after this experience. Joseph in Canaan and Joseph in Egypt are different. I know the direction of before and after looks weird because I put it by geographical direction. Joseph traveled from Canaan to Egypt this way. Anyways, we saw last time Joseph was kind of bragging about his good dreams to his family, which caused his brothers to hate him. But when Joseph was in Egypt, both at Potiphar's house or in prison, he seemed to be humble and more likable person by his master and boss. What made a difference? And what happened to Joseph on the way to Egypt? Guys, can you put yourself in Joseph's place for a moment? Let's pretend to be Joseph, okay? We need some kind of creative imagination here. How would you feel and what would you think during the long trip, the trip that takes you far away from home to an unknown, strange place? Egypt is the country he only has heard of, but never been to, so completely strange place. On the way to Egypt, he must have had a lot of thoughts on his mind. First of all, he couldn't understand what happened to him and why it happened to him. Why did my brothers do that to me? Why did they hate me? And he could be so angry with his brothers and sad about his situation. And in a little while, he might get worried, afraid of what's going to happen to him in the future. What if the Egyptians hurt me? What if they kill me? What if they don't give me food? I'm hungry even now. Nothing was for sure. What to eat, where to sleep, how to live, and so on. As he was going through the very difficult time, he realized there was no one who can help him. His dad, who loved him so much and made him special coat, was not there, so he couldn't help him anymore. He found himself alone. He was in a big family in Canaan, but no one is available for him now. He found himself all alone. While he was in loneliness and despair, he started to seek God and ask Him for help. While he was praying, all of a sudden, he realized that there was something that wasn't changed. God was still there, though everyone else was gone. It was kind of big discovery. When he was surrounded by many people, he didn't know that God was so real and close. But when he was all alone, his eyes were open to see God. He could feel God clearer and closer. Because he was so desperate for help, he kept seeking God. He spent more time praying and staying in God. As he spent more time with God, he learned to enjoy having time with God. Now he wasn't alone anymore. He was with God, and he knew that God was with him. And he realized one more thing. Even if everything changed, the dreams God gave him earlier didn't change. Because the dreams were God's message about his future, it was like God's promise that he would become a great person. That means his present state won't last forever. It will change. So, he decided to hold on to God's promise even if he was still in chains of slave. He trusted and had a dream that God would make him great in the future. he also learned that this dream wasn't something he could brag about, but it was something he could thank God for. So, Joseph was changed on the way to Egypt. He got to have more intimate relationship with God through the difficult times. And this could change the rest of Joseph's life in Egypt. In Egypt, he came to the house of Potiphar, captain of Pharaoh's guard. Watch the video to see how Joseph did in Egypt.
This is Joseph.
Hey!
Who was the son of Israel and Rachel.
Ah.
He was his father's favorite, so his brothers hated him and sold him into slavery.
Yeep.
You see, Joseph was taken to Egypt, and Potiphar, one of the Pharaoh's officials, bought him for his household. God was with Joseph, and he did well in Potiphar's house.
Oh.
Potiphar saw that God made everything Joseph did a success.
Aha.
So he put Joseph in charge of his whole house.
Yeah.
And God blessed Potiphar's house because of this. Potiphar's wife saw how well Joseph was doing in the house, and she wanted to make him do bad things. Joseph ran away from her because he wanted nothing to do with someone who would try to make him do the wrong thing. This made Potiphar's wife angry, and she wanted to be rid of Joseph. So she lied and made Potiphar believe that Joseph had done the bad things that she wanted him to do. Potiphar burned with anger against Joseph and sent him to prison. While Joseph was in prison, again, he did well, and the warden soon made him responsible for all that was done there. God was with Joseph and gave him success in whatever he did. When 2 full years had passed, Pharaoh was having unsettling dreams. Pharaoh did not understand his dreams, so he sent for Joseph. Pharaoh asked Joseph to tell him the meaning of his dreams. With God's help, Joseph told Pharaoh that the dreams told of what could come in the future, and he explained all the dreams to the Pharaoh. Pharaoh believed that what Joseph was saying was true. He trusted Joseph as a wise man, and he put him in charge of the land of Egypt, of Pharaoh's palace, and of all his people.
As you watched from the video, because Joseph was a God-fearing person, he was so different from other servants. Even if Joseph was a slave in Potiphar's house, Potiphar liked him, and he put Joseph in charge of everything he had. It is unbelievable for a person to trust someone this much. How could this happen? Today's verse says, his master, that is Potiphar, saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord gave him success in everything he did. What does it mean? When Potiphar watched Joseph working in his house, Joseph was doing so well with everything. In fact, it's not enough to say that he did well. His master Potiphar, though he was an unbeliever, he could see that God was with Joseph and God gave him success. Guys, did you ever see anybody who made you think that God was with a person and you could give your trust to the person? Or the other way around? Can you think of any person who can trust you believing God is with you? I know some of you are too young to have this kind of idea. But anyways, This means that we can let people see God by what we do and how we live our life. That is why Jesus said in Matthew 5:16, "Let your light shine before men, that they may see your good deeds and praise your Father in heaven." Remember, we can show God to people around us by our good works, and in doing so, we can honor God too. And God will definitely reward us with many blessings. Let's read the verse together. Matthew 5:16. "Let your light shine before men, that they may see your good deeds and praise your Father in heaven." Joseph, who started his life as a slave boy in Egypt, did his best in whatever responsibility is given him. He always kept in mind the dreams God had given him, and he held on to God's promise. That is how he gained trust and good reputation from his bosses. When he finally reached Pharaoh, the highest person in Egypt, he was able to catch his mind too. And Pharaoh put him in the position next to him, and his dream came true in the end. Okay, this is the activity for today. It is the world map. I want you to mark the countries you've been to or you wish to visit in the future, okay? And have time to pray for those countries and the whole world in which people hear the gospel and live by the gospel. This is an example of mine, the countries that I lived and visited. I don't live in most of the places anymore, but I keep them in my prayer. I hope you will do the same thing. Enjoy your activity.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Hide it under a bushel, no, I'm gonna let it shine. Hide it under a bushel, no, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Don't let Satan put it out, I'm gonna let it shine. Don't let Satan put it out, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Let it shine till Jesus comes, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine till Jesus comes, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.